Good morning. Welcome back into Wake Up America. I'm Rob Finnerty with Allison Maloney. The Wall Street Journal reporting yesterday that the debt ceiling bill is a, quote, significant victory for the GOP in return for raising the debt ceiling that had to be raised anyway, with a vote expected right around 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight. As many as 30 Republicans could vote against this bill.
And joining us now for more on how this plays out is Pennsylvania Congressman and member of the Small Business and Financial Services Committees, Dan Meuser. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. So does this bill pass tonight?
Yes, I think it's virtually a sure thing. I do believe we have the votes. And, you know, Allison, for a lot of good reasons. First off, default is something that's really out of the question. And you want to know what? During the course of this negotiation, which only occurred, by the way, because we passed the Limit Save Grow bill, which Schumer and the White House didn't think we'd pass. But by passing it, this White House actually was okay with the idea of a default. Their wokeness was keeping them asleep as to what would occur within the economy. It wasn't until the private sector, and I mean the entirety of the private sector, went to the White House and said, look, you guys gotta wake up and woke down. Defaults would be absolutely devastating. So that's why really over the last week, they've been in such a rush to negotiate. But politically speaking, they felt the default, you know, let's let our economy crumble some more, would be in their interest to blame Republicans. But fortunately, we had a great negotiating team. And I want to tell you, we've got at least 12 different major provisions. Now, they're incremental. I'm not going to oversell it, but they're incremental improvements to the status quo. And that's better than where we are now.
So you're a yes vote on this bill tonight?
I'm positive to it. Yes, I'm going to be a yay. I went through it in great detail, talked with a lot of groups. I mean, from the National Taxpayers Union to the American Petroleum Institute to the Association of Builders and Contractors. And Rob, why that's important is we've got some energy provisions in here for Pennsylvania, which are significant. New pipeline development, deregulation on infrastructure projects. I mean, some real positive actions in the right direction.
Yeah, a lot of what the criticism has been is that this bill is so reliant upon a Republican winning in the White House in January 2025, when this 2-year extension would expire. I want to play for you a soundbite. This is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who was on Newsmax last night, addressing why he doesn't like this bill. Take a listen.
My goodness, you look at it and you wonder, where are the conservatives? I mean, if this is supposedly a conservative deal that Republicans got something from, there are no real cuts in spending. Basically, there are cuts in the proposed rate of increased spending, but the budget still explodes. I think this is an absolute disaster for conservatives. They shouldn't tolerate it, and they should watch how their representatives vote. And boy, we need new ones. If anybody supports this that you think is a conservative, we need to send them home.
All right, so Congressman, so we could have up to 30 no votes in the House today. If it does make it through the House tonight, does it pass the Senate? We've got about 20 seconds.
Well, good question. But a guy like Rand Paul, I mean, that's just foolishness. I mean, this stops the bleeding. It reins in inflation. It reins in the executive orders. And by the way, where was the Senate bill? Look, I'm not in the business of being critical of those that are Republican. I agree with most of the time. But we've got some significant improvements here, and the bill's going to pass, and the Senate need to get on board because the Senate hasn't done a damn thing to help this effort along.
All right, Congressman Dan Meuser, we appreciate your time this morning. We'll have you back on soon. We'll be watching the House floor tonight, right around 7:13 Eastern time. For more on the debt ceiling and what this could mean for you at home, let's bring in former White House strategic advisor Mercedes Schlapp and former Massachusetts Congressman and chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, Barney Frank, back with us this morning. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mercedes. Let's start with you. So you just heard Congressman Dan Meuser says he's going to support, he's going to vote for it. He says he thinks it will pass. Do you agree? And do you think it's a good decision?
Look, I think that McCarthy will have the votes to pass the debt ceiling. You will hear a lot of noise coming from some of the members on the right who obviously feel that it doesn't go far enough. And there are several groups that have come out and said, you know, they're urging their House members or senators to vote no on this debt ceiling deal. I will have to say, though, I mean, McCarthy is doing the best he can. You know, it's not the perfect deal in any way, but he's doing the best he can in a tricky position to at least freeze an increase in the debt ceiling rise for the next 2 years. We of course conservatives want to see more spending cuts. That's critical. Of course, we want to see if they could defund the FBI and really look into the weaponization of the DOJ. But the reality is that a deal needs to happen. A deal needs to occur in order to avoid the default. It's a pity that our country and a lot of these Democrats and even Republicans still agree that that they're going to spend their way out of these problems. That shouldn't be the case. We need fiscal responsibility in the House. But quite frankly, I think that Republicans and Democrats are stuck in a situation where they just need to get this passed.
Yeah, and Mercedes, the weaponization of the IRS,
Yes.
that's been at the core of this whole thing for the past several months. Congressman, good to see you. I want to get your take on this rosy description from the New York Post yesterday of this whole thing. The Post basically saying that McCarthy passing this bill shows real leadership. One measure of strong leadership is the ability to focus on a specific goal while ignoring the noise until you achieve that goal. In this case, Speaker McCarthy understood that strong medicine is required to avoid significant economic upheaval. Again, that coming from the Post. Where are you with Democratic support on this bill? Do you think a lot of Democrats crossed the aisle and helped to get this thing over the finish line?
Of course. The suggestion earlier that the Democrats were okay with default that we heard from Congressman Meuser is simply wrong. Frankly, it's always bad for the incumbent when you have this kind of disruption. The economy has been improving, and this would be a terrible blow to the economy. I agree with the Post description, but I would add it applies as well to Joe Biden. Biden played a very major role in this myth that Biden is somehow ineffective or disengaged. It is clear that the impetus for this came from the White House. The congressional Democrats were not very involved in this. The president took over. He appointed his negotiators. Kevin McCarthy appointed his. And yeah, this speaks well, frankly, of the leadership ability of both. The other point is this. Critics from both sides are missing a fundamental point. We have a split government. We have a Republican House and a Democratic Senate and President. And unless you are prepared to see a default and all the economic damage, and by the way, we're not talking about abstract economic damage. We're talking about people, small business people and others who should get paid. We're talking about paying for the people who have in good faith done business. But given this divided government, this is the best deal that anybody could have expected. And yes, I'm sure it's going to pass with heavy support from the Democrats.
Yeah, Mercedes, Congressman Frank just mentioned the small business people, and a lot of things that people have been paying attention to is the hiring of these 87,000 IRS agents, essentially going to go after an audit. A lot of people, who can't afford to have an attorney and can't go through that whole process. Now, this it's going to only cut it to 85,000 IRS agents, so we're still going to have these IRS agents in there. Does this, Speaker McCarthy, is this going to hurt him at all? The future, because he did go in and say he's going to, try and get rid of this, Mercedes?
It may hurt him early until we see how it works. The administration has said they will not be doing additional audits for people making less than $400,000 a year.
You believe that, Barney? You buy that? I don't buy that.
Well,
I think this is all about shaking down everyday Americans and small businesses across the country.
Look,
I think I was about to give is we'll see.
Yeah.
There's no point. We're not going to agree. I think, and here's what motivates, I will tell you, a lot of Democrats. It's the large number of people earning enormous amounts of money who manipulate the tax code. And yes, I am in favor of going after those people who are very rich who don't pay their share.
Yeah, look, manipulating the tax code, I just have a tough time with that because it's not manipulating the tax code when you use the laws that exist on the books to your advantage. That's not manipulating. By the way, why pay Uncle Sam one more penny?
I'm not sure why they have to carry guns.
Mercedes, quickly. Barney, hold on one second. Mercedes, 15 seconds. Yeah, final thought.
The congressman is very animated about that particular issue. I will tell you, it is one of the most unpopular issues. The IRS is an institution, obviously, that has very little support from the American taxpayers. Quite frankly, they could have spent that money elsewhere. How about school security officers? That being more a priority than having IRS agents who are armed going after American taxpayers.
That's federal. You're talking about federal versus local responsibility. Are you now having the federal government directly involved in financing the schools? That's an odd position for a conservative.
All right, we
Well,
got Mercedes.
we can
2
get
seconds.
to that, Congressman. I'll tell you right now that, as you know very clearly, there's federal funding that does go to schools. Many times
Not
it's a
for the
lot.
operation, not for
All right.
hiring personnel directly.
But that would be a whole different discussion for you.
Mercedes, Barney Frank, we got to leave it there.
Defunding
We can talk about this all morning.
Terrorists.
We'll pick it up
All right,
again.
we
We'll
will.
pick it up
We will.
again. Vote
Thank you
happens
so much.
7:13 p.m. tonight. Barney Frank, Mercedes Schlapp, thank you.
All right.